video is going to go over some of the basics of professional style. It's really important that you go over the textbook material carefully, as that will include specific examples of many of the concepts I'm going to talk about in this short video. Be sure that you have a paper and pencil ready so that you can take notes, and don't hesitate to pause the video if you need to review something. Let's get started. So when we talk about professional style, what we're really talking about isn't grammatical correctness, but a way to interact with a text or to create a text that is clear and easy to read. Professional style for the science and technical fields uses plain language. It gives a preference for clarity and conciseness. It usually uses a positive tone, just like other business writing will use. It'll be formatted for ease of reading and use inclusive language. And it'll have specific message conventions. If you're writing a letter or an email or a memo, those conventions will be really important for professional style. So there are a few things to remember when we think about professional style. First and foremost, this is not about grammatical correctness. You can have a perfectly grammatical document or deliverable that is still poorly conceived for the intended audience, context, and purpose. Things to remember, though, are that professional documents and deliverables only exist to get things done, and that no one owes you a reading. When we think about the document or the deliverable, we really have to focus on the reader or the audience and make sure that the reader and the audience's needs are in the forefront. So one important thing to remember is that unlike an academic class where your teacher assigns you an essay and the teacher will in fact read the entire essay because they're contractually obligated to, in the real world, out in your profession someday, if you write a poorly conceived email or deliverable, it just won't get read. So one of the first things that we want to think about in terms of professional style is plain language. If you're working for the government, there is actually a bill that was passed that said that government documents need to be in plain language. And most science and technical fields value plain language in their documents and deliverables. So plain language is language that is easily understood by multiple audiences. It is often conversational in tone and written specifically for an intended audience. Plain language is organized effectively and designed for reading. And finally, plain language is concise. Much of what you will learn to do in this course is to take your draft and figure out a way to revise it into a more precise, concise, and short document. And you want it to be concise and clear without sacrificing the information, which can be a challenging process. When we talk about conciseness, we want to think about selecting common and easily understood words. You want to avoid jargon and slang, and you want to make sure that you're revising wordy expressions. Again, our textbook has very specific examples that can help you with all of this. Finally, you want to make sure that you're eliminating redundancy. A lot of how we speak in person has redundancy built into it. These are common cliched phrases. But when you're writing for the science and technical fields and doing technical writing deliverables, it's really important that you eliminate that redundancy. The deliverables and documents that you create for this class and for your future career should have a positive tone, which means that you're using positive language. Rather than saying that something cannot be done, you can always revise it to say what can be done. So instead of your car will not be ready Friday, you could say your car can be picked up on Saturday. Emphasizing the positive nature of the situation helps get your reader on board and engaged. Whenever you can, you want to avoid negative phrasing. So anytime you're telling someone what they can't do, what won't work, it's really important to kind of turn that around and make it positive whenever possible. You also want to think about the format that you create texts in for reading. Be sure that you understand audience constraints. So when you're assigned essays in college or high school courses, usually you're told a specific format. It's double-spaced with indented paragraphs. Usually there's no other formatting involved. But when you're creating documents and deliverables for the business or professional world, it's important to understand how that deliverable will be consumed by the audience. One thing to note is that audiences can read and understand short paragraphs better than long paragraphs. Whenever possible, break your paragraphs into very concise segments where the first sentence is the declaration of what that specific paragraph is about. Using lists instead of dense, long sentences can help with readability and accessibility. Using parallel construction, where you use similar phrasing or similar design throughout a document, can help emphasize different points and make it easier to access and understand for your reader. And also making sure that you understand some of the design basics that we'll be going over in this course. Other things that you want to think about, though, for audience constraints is thinking about how your deliverable will be delivered. Something that is printed has different constraints than something that will be viewed online, and that could include hypertext or links. Thinking about whether you want to use visuals or you want to design your document in a way to highlight certain words. These are all different ways that we can use professional style to make a document more engaging for our audience. Whenever you're writing for a professional situation, you want to make sure that you're using inclusive language and avoiding biased language that identifies the sex or gender of an individual, age, ethnicity, race, or any other identifying information that has nothing to do with the issue at hand. Other document conventions that you will need to pay attention to this semester. First of all, unlike academic essays, the documents you write for this class should be single-spaced. Instead of indenting paragraphs, you'll use single line breaks between paragraphs. You'll also use headings and subheadings to guide your reader. The most important information should be towards the top of the page or towards the left of the page, and less important information will be lower on the page or indented right. We want to really make sure that we're using white space. All of the documents we create for this course should be created to engage a reader, and nothing turns a reader off or makes them shut down faster than a large expanse of dense, unbroken text. So using white space in your document design can help guide a reader through. You also want to make sure that you're using consistent page design. How you lay out the information can be important to how your reader accesses it. Finally, this semester, we're also going to be talking about some really basic parts of graphic design. This isn't a graphic design course, but much of the writing and the deliverables you'll be creating for your professional careers will include some understanding of just really basic design elements, including how to use contrast, or that would be like boldface versus white space, repetition, where you're using parallel structure or the repetition of structure, layout, or even wording, alignment, where things are aligned on the page and how similar topics are aligned in the same way, and also proximity, which means that you're chunking information close to other information that is similar. So we'll be talking about some of those design basics throughout the semester and working on ways that we can create deliverables that are more engaging and accessible for our audience. As I said, be sure that you are carefully reading our textbook in perusal for some of the basics of business style. This chapter and this section specifically is something you really do need to return to again and again over the semester. You want to use those chapters as reference materials to kind of go back and check over your work as you work on it. If you have questions, you should use office hours